Away, Jose.
The following footage proves beyond any doubt that the tanks intentionally set the house on fire. It proves that the Branch Davidians were murdered. You can see that this tank has a gas jet on the front that shoots fire. You can also see the fire quite plainly. The tank goes into the house twice, and each time as it backs out, the fire at the gas jet is plainly visible.
We must all do more to recognize and look for the early warning signals that deeply troubled young people send.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the No Way Jose podcast. Well, that was weird. Just immediately when I started frogging my throat. Welcome to the No Way Jose podcast. This is the Morning Dump. I am today's host, Jose Galison. No Austin here today, but I think he might. I think he'll join us tomorrow. He might even solo it tomorrow. I'm not sure if I'll be here tomorrow or not. But yeah, we got somebody. We got somebody manning the gates. In the meantime, here I am. I see some of the usuals in here: Pollo, Paradis, Ray, Glowy, Niggerspick, Jas. What's up, guys? Yeah, it seems we do get a slightly different crew that comes in on the weekends. But all right, guys. Well, while we wait for more of y'all to roll in before we get into some actual topics, let's go ahead and remind you guys that today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Nadeau Shave Co. This is the premier alternative to those multi-blade cartridges. This is a single blade safety razor. This is the way to go. Let me just break it down for you real quick and tell you all the ways this is better than your normal multi-blade bullshit. This thing right here has got a single blade. It's kind of similar design to your normal, multi-blade cartridges. The safety razor design. It's not quite like the old school, barber single blades. It's not like that. So it's manageable. You know how to use this. But it's the same exact thing basically. You're shaving exactly the same way, but it's better for your skin since there's only one blade, so it's only one single blade, go scraping against your face. Then it's also gives you a much better shave. It's like baby smooth. It's a lot cheaper. It's $75 for the course of an entire year. That comes with the blade, but with the little razor you see here and the blades that come with it. Now after that, you just got to get to re-up the blades every time. So it's not going to be $75 every year, but I mean $75 for a year, even just right off the jump, comparing that to the multi-blade cartridges, they're like $30 per replacement. You're gonna do that multiple times in a year. So even just the first year, you're probably making savings. And then after that, you're just nothing but savings. So cheaper, better for you. It is from a company that doesn't hate your cuts. This company was born out of refusing the COVID mandate. I'm retarded. The COVID mandate. And then on top of all of that, you can get 10% off if you use Jose at checkout, as if that wasn't enough. But with that, let's go ahead and let's check in the chat, and then we'll get into some topics. I see just most people saying hi. Good morning, Tim Tuttle. Good morning, Doctori420 saying subtards to the group. Good morning, Mike LCA. Good morning, Nancy. Good morning. That was just Doctori again. All right, let's actually get some content. To start off, we will do a little bit of anti-war. This was stuff I didn't really cover yesterday, but I felt like it made sense to go ahead and cover it. So let's go ahead and get into that. Here is Hamas agrees to release Israeli-American hostage. Now, this is from yesterday, but I thought we didn't really cover the whole, any of the Gaza-Israel stuff yesterday, so I figured it was worthwhile to kind of take a second and dig into this. Hamas announced on Friday that it agreed to release American Eden Alexander along with the bodies of 4 other dual U.S. Israelis who died in Gaza. The group did not provide more details about the agreement. In a statement on the group's Telegram channel, Hamas explained that the armed Palestinian group is willing to release Eden Alexander, who holds American citizenship, in addition to the bodies of 4 other dual nations. Alexander is believed to be the last living Hamas hostage with American citizenship. He was serving in an Israeli military unit near Gaza on October 7th when he was captured during the Hamas assault. Now, if those of you may recall, recently, the most recent tough talk from Trump was a direct result of this Eden Alexander fella. That's what this was all about. Was the fact that, hey, you know, that was a claim, like, oh, we want our American citizen back. So this is what it's kind of all over. While the details of the agreement are unclear, CNN reported on Thursday that President Donald Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff had presented a proposal to the Qataris earlier this week that involved Hamas releasing Alexander. Under that agreement, the Israeli total siege of Gaza would be lifted and the ceasefire extended through Passover, April 20th. Since March 1st, Israel has imposed a total blockade of Gaza, preventing food, fuel, medicine, and energy from reaching the Strip. International aid organizations, including Doctors Without Borders, have condemned Tel Aviv's siege as collective punishment and using deprivation as a negotiating tactic. After Israel imposed a blockade, the UN warned food could run out within weeks. On March 1st, Israel and Hamas were scheduled to begin Phase 2 of the three-phase ceasefire and hostage deal. However, Tel Aviv refused to complete the required withdrawal from Gaza and demanded Hamas release the rest of its hostages without Israel agreeing to permanently end military operations in the Strip. Hamas has called on Israel to abide by the initial agreement that would see the rest of the Israeli hostages released over the coming month in exchange for full Israeli withdrawal and permanent ceasefire. Tel Aviv appears prepared to have begrudgingly accepted Friday's agreement, but warned the move is a ploy by Hamas. Netanyahu's office said Israel has accepted the Witkoff outline and shown flexibility, but said that Hamas is refusing and will not budge from its positions. So Friday's agreement. Let me make sure. I'm trying to keep track of all the different agreements here. So I'm trying to think. They had agreed to release along with a. Okay, so I'm trying. Sorry. So Steve Witkoff. I'm believing they're referring to the Witkoff presenting proposal involving Hamas releasing it, and under that agreement, this total siege would be lifted and the ceasefire extended. So they still wouldn't leave the Strip. Just to rehash that. So Witkoff is proposing this as an idea now. It seems Hamas is still sticking by the no, you guys need to leave under the terms of their previous agreement, the agreement that you guys agreed to, and obviously Israel reneged on that, and here we are, and now we're not even talking about that since that's kind of almost, I guess you could say, a red line for Israel is seemingly how they're framing it. But it's also kind of a red line for Hamas. So we're kind of in this like back and forth. Like, is anyone willing to budge on this at all? That's where we're at right now. But under this current agreement that was pushed up by Witkoff, the siege, which is just by the siege, it just means like the blockade, essentially, the preventing goods from coming in and out. That would be done. So I mean that'd be cool, but it still would be them, backing off their original agreement. So, all right, see where we were. Israel, Tel Aviv appears to have, blah, blah, blah. All right, at the same time, it continues to use manipulation and psychological warfare. The reports about Hamas's willingness to release American hostages are intended to sabotage the negotiations, the statement added. This is stupid. Obviously, Israel's stupid, not this article. But the release of the American captives follows direct talks between the U.S. and Hamas last week. Trump's hostage envoy, Adam Bowler, met with Hamas officials, drawing the ire of Tel Aviv, which we actually talked about that yesterday, how it looks like he might be getting shit canned because of the fact that he treated Hamas like human beings and not like they were evil incarnate while involved in diplomacy with them. Odd. But yeah. All right, let's move on from this article. Nothing really else too meaningful left at the ass end of this, but let's leave this article. Let's check in with you guys, see what you guys have to say. Oh, just everyone just saying hi. Raven didn't even raid Jose. What a fag. Oh yeah, I saw he started a thing. I don't know, is he done by now? I assume he's probably done by now. But big love over to the homie over there, to Raven on the off chance he sees this. But yeah, he doesn't have to raid me every time. It's all good. All right, on to the next story. We're still on the anti-Semitism bent here. Here is the U.S. Justice Department examining whether student protests at Columbia University over the genocide in Gaza violated federal terrorism laws. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche said today, and this was yesterday. Blanche's department previously said the investigation is also looking into civil rights violations stemming from the administration's expanded definition of anti-Semitism to include, criticism of Israel. So here you go. See, this is why so many of us, when they were really pushing this whole stupid fucking anti-Semitism definition crap a while ago, I forget how it worked. That why a lot of us were complaining, because it's like, oh, now this is entering into the world of law, and you are using the Holocaust working definition. Was the Holocaust Memorial Museum working definition, I believe, or something like that. But essentially, that's the definition that's complete horseshit, includes criticism of Israel in it. And so now you're in a situation here where we have, all right, once again, sorry about the cat. There's literally nothing going on. He's just being a dick. So, but yes, not like he's stuck anywhere or anything. Just this is what he does. This is Jeff. This is Jeff for you. But all right, anyways, this is why we were complaining about it with the anti-Semitism, the changing of the definition. Don't get me wrong; it was already gay to begin with. That like it could even ever enter into the realm of legality. But we live in a country that has this thing called the Civil Rights Act. And so this infects everything. And I'm one of those people, those crazy libertarians out there who's not a fan of the Civil Rights Act. Don't think it should have ever existed, personally. I mean, I don't necessarily have a problem with with the government using the Civil Rights Act to govern themselves, like in their hiring practices and stuff. I mean, like, whatever. But whenever it applies to anything else, but it's just such a gray area too, because when you're dealing with universities, they're government funded, which I don't believe they should be funded by the government whatsoever. So that would solve that problem, but they are. So here we are, and this is kind of the tangled web we weave here. So, but let's go ahead and watch this. Let's watch this thing. By the way, just for those who aren't aware, this Todd Blanche guy, he is it said here, the Deputy Attorney General. So this is Pam Bondi's right-hand man. But let's go ahead and listen to this, see what he has to say.
The president promised that under his watch, we will no longer stand by while universities tolerate and facilitate anti-Semitism and support of terrorism on their campuses. The department's recent actions, which hopefully you've seen at Columbia University in coordination with our law enforcement agency partners, are part of the administration's mission to end anti-Semitism in this country. Just last night, we worked with the Department of Homeland Security to execute search warrants from an investigation into Columbia University for harboring and concealing illegal aliens on its campus.
Oh yeah, I remember we talked about this, I believe, yesterday a little bit, me and Austin. I was a little confused when he brought it up because it was like completely not on the topic we were talking about. But at that time, I was like, "What the fuck?" But yeah, no, this is important stuff. They're doing like raids in like which I mean, I don't know. I did a semester in college way back the day. I flunked hardcore, and then then I joined the military, and here we are now. Yeah, what was my point? Why did I say? Schools. Yeah, I mean, obviously the school is allowed to. I mean, when you have a dorm on base, not on base, because my head's mixing things up because I'm remembering my days in the military when they had dorms. But colleges have dorms too, and you obviously you pay for it. It's on campus, but as part of the agreement of all of this is, hey, they're allowed to search your room. They're allowed to do this, that, and this. But that's the university itself. I mean, it's just creepier now that they're literally executing search warrants to go search college kids' fucking rooms. Like, this is weird. I don't know. I don't like it. This is odd. I mean, whatever. If the university wants to search their rooms because they want to make sure it's to their standards or whatever, that's one thing. But something's creepy about the federal government being like, we're going to go to colleges and start searching your kids' rooms. Something's fucking weird about that. I don't like it. But all right, let's keep going.
That investigation is ongoing, and we are also looking at whether Columbia's handling of earlier incidents violated civil rights laws and included terrorism crimes. This is long overdue. Let me be clear. Hamas is a terrorist organization. It has the blood of American citizens on its hands, innocent victims, many of whom are citizens of this country, have died because of Hamas's actions. Any person engaging in actions, many of whom are Innocent victims, many of whom are citizens of this country, have died because of Hamas's actions.
Okay, so I'm not going to rewind it again and do that to you, but I was trying to get the beginning of that statement because, like, what? Like, because I heard someone else, or maybe it was him, maybe I heard this somewhere else saying something along the lines of, like, oh, you know, and obviously we just read a story where we were talking about how there was an American citizen who is currently being held hostage by Hamas, but I don't really personally see him as an American citizen. That guy is a member of the IDF. He left in the United States a long time ago, and far be it for me to be like someone who's really hung up on the concept of citizenship or anything like that. I'm an anarcho-capitalist. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't care about any of that. So it's just the idea of that, like, I don't know, the idea that someone from the government of this country is then telling me, like, oh, this person from another that's literally on the other side of the world is our responsibility somehow because he is a member of this union, this United States. Yeah, miss me with that gay shit, dude. Like, no. Like, I mean, I don't buy into this premise to begin with. This whole concept of, like, you know, being I don't know, subsidiaries of governments, you know, in general, but I mean, if it's like literally because it's like, oh, someone is involved in a foreign conflict and overseas, and they're literally part of an other country's military, and they dealt with said consequences. No, I don't think it's on us to deal with it. So the civilians he's talking, or the Americans he's talking about here, are almost certainly entirely the odds, and for one, I will say it's also silly that he said many or a lot. I don't remember what word he used there, but essentially, you know, implying a bunch of people of our citizens have been you know, hurt, killed, whatever by Hamas. I don't see that to be the case. I don't, unless he's referring to something else I'm completely unaware of. Yeah, that seems like complete nonsense to me. I think yeah, maybe you're dealing with, like, you know. Maybe maybe a couple dozen tops, and even then, those are almost all probably likely IDF members that he's referring to here. Probably people who got caught up in the whole mix of this. So, fuck them. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't want bad things to happen to these people, but it's like if you're literally going to go to another country and join their military, yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty fair for the previous country we were part of to be like, yeah, that's not our problem. And as I've mentioned multiple times with, like, the Roger Ver situation, when we've kind of had this little rant before, because I got mad at Elon for saying something kind of similar, where he's like, oh, this guy's not even a citizen anymore. He gave up citizenship. So no, you know, he shouldn't get, you know, pardoned by the president. That's a different situation. He's literally being prosecuted by the United States government. That's a different, like, and he's asking for the United States government to, hey, could you guys, like, stop? That'd be cool. So it'd be a different story if it was like the Roger Ver situation. It was a different country, and he was calling upon the United States to help him. In that situation, it'd be like, no, sorry, dude, you're on your own. You literally gave up your citizenship. And not that I, like, have anything against people giving up his citizenship. I'm just saying that's, like, it wouldn't make sense for the government of the United States to be like, well, now you're our problem. So I don't know, a little bit of a rant there. All right, let's check in with you guys. I can't wait to get sent to Greenland. So Scott is here. Boomer Sooners popping up in here. Here's Glowy Nigger Spick says, it is crazy the American dual citizens go to shithole countries and get themselves in trouble and expect us to be willing to start a war over them. Exactly. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't want bad things particularly to happen to these people. I don't really even... It's just, yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous that you're like, oh, I'm going to go aggravate a situation somewhere else that has nothing to do with this one entity, and then essentially meaningfully forsake my, you know, my ties to that other entity, and then get in trouble, and then go over to that other entity and go, hey, could you help me out? They're like, what, why would I? All right, let's get into the next story. I wanted to follow up more on the Odessa Trade Union House fire. I call it the Odessa Massacre in the titling here. Hey, you guys can see this, right? You guys do see the thing, right? It just got like a weird notification saying that, like, it broke off, like it lost connection or something. So let me know. Make sure you let me know you guys are seeing this. But anyways, back to this. The Odessa's fire. I mean, we found about this yesterday when we were talking about that one guy who got assassinated, and I just figured it'd be kind of interesting to take a moment to kind of look back at this, because this is particularly kind of fucking wild when you understand the role, what was going on here. So I found a video from an individual who was, I guess, in the fire, and I thought it'd be worthwhile listening to, although it will be my voice the whole time. It is in Ukrainian or whatever the hell their language is, so I'll be reading it. But I thought this was particularly kind of interesting. We could see a first-hand thing, and I don't know, maybe probably scroll through a few of these other tweets in here and kind of flesh out some information here. So, all right, let's go ahead and play this. People wouldn't accept the coup d'etat and try to determine what to do next. Let me turn that volume a little bit. Because they weren't ready to accept the way the events had unfolded in Kiev. I think the coup was organized by our oligarchs with the support of U.S. and European intelligence services. Actually, let me check, make sure. Yeah, they can see it. All right, I didn't even think to look and see to check the chat to see if you guys said you could see it. All right, you guys are saying you've seen it. All right, let's keep going. On May 1st, there was a major demonstration. About 20,000 people. The whole city was abuzz. Perhaps that led to the decision to unleash carnage on May 2nd. A lot of smashed cars and explosions, but they won't let us react. Either you put them all away now or we'll be storming you on Monday. This is I think that's somebody talking that I'm reading right now because it looked like somebody on the phone. Okay, so you see once again, the guy talking, so he's saying, hey, a lot of smashed cars, but they won't let us react. So he's essentially calling on someone to allow them to react. Either you put them all away now or we'll be storming you on Monday. The teams and leaders were all from, once again, this is back to the guy narrating this. The teams and leaders were all from Western Ukraine. For context, what I was just saying a second ago was like it looked like a cop or somebody on the phone talking to somebody, asking to do some sort of action. So, all right, anyways, back to the narrator here. The teams and leaders were all from Western Ukraine. They seriously differ from all other Ukrainians. Their language is different, everything. I personally saw people on the roof with pistols. On the roofs. The police of the trade unions buildings did nothing, even when the events began. So there were police here, just so you guys know. I didn't leave the building, as I saw how the people going downstairs were beaten with sticks, chains, and steel bars. All right. They tried to beat me too, but I used to be an athlete, so I blocked the blows. No need for lynching. Those who survived were led through a quarter of shame. I think the lynching comment was some voice they picked up here. Because I know you guys can't hear it too well. I turned the volume down a lot so you didn't have to hear a garbled Ukrainian mixed with my English. But you can hear a little light volume probably. And so there is stuff going on. So some of these things I'm reading are the captions picking up other people talking in the frames and stuff. But all right, let's keep going. Those who survived were led through a quarter of shame. They were beaten with sticks and forced to crawl and so on. Now, I want to back up and provide a little context here. This group that's being beaten is the this is like the Maidan Revolution. This is when we funded, and I just want to go ahead and say ahead of the time, I've never been someone who was super big into this. I'm literally just learning about this thing happening. I was never a huge, knowing all the ins and outs. I mean, if you want that, you got Dave Smith, you got my buddy Clint. He's really good about when it comes to Ukraine, Russia. You got Scott Warren. I'm not that guy. This isn't my wheelhouse. I mean, I might be in the future. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'll find things interesting. But from my vague understanding, it's kind of like we had the 2014 Maidan Revolution, which was essentially funded by NGOs over here in the States. We essentially, exacerbated this revolutionary movement. Essentially, made it a thing, and this is kind of one of the culminations of this. The individuals attacking that are essentially attacking and harassing people here are essentially the ones that are backed by the United States. These are the Western backed forces. I guess forces might not be the right word for it, but groups. I guess, because this is it was very clear that the United States wanted, I forget the people involved and the individuals, was I don't know, I feel stupid, but either way, point being is this was the Westerners, this was the Western-backed group here that was doing all the harm here. And the individuals in the fire were the counter-protesters, the ones who were essentially not for this new regime that the West wanted. All right, let's keep going. Officially, 48 people died, but I think it was significantly more. Because a lot of people suffocated, a lot were killed, and a lot just disappeared. These people will do anything to justify Ukraine's leadership if it serves their goals. They support nationalists who are nearly outright Nazis. So yeah, that's the end of that video. I thought this was kind of a good little insight into the Odessa fire situation. Yeah, wild one. I'm astounded. I'm just now learning about this. I'm not saying this I'm sure plenty of people know about this, especially those who follow the ins and outs of this stuff. But this is the first time hearing about it. So this is wild shit. Yeah, man, dark stuff. All right, I'm going to scroll through. See, I think we kind of covered all the meaningful stuff. Oh yeah, I do want to remind you guys that this is the reason why this kind of came to the fore here. I did say this earlier. This Demyan Ghoul guy. Here's another picture of him. We covered this yesterday. For those who weren't here, you can go check it out. We kind of went into a little bit of the details of the Demyan Ghoul assassination. Now here he's one of the guys who was essentially responsible for this Odessa fire, massacre, or whatever you want to call it. And he just got murdered. I believe it was yesterday or the day before. He got assassinated. I actually watched a video this morning where I watched the video. I didn't get to see where he got shot initially, but so I don't know exactly how he got. But there's literally video of it where you can see the guy double tapping him. I mean, you don't see the initial shot, but you see him literally casually walk up with multiple other people there, just kind of looking like, what the fuck? They don't even look scared really, and he just kind of casually walks up, pulls out his pistol, bends over, puts it to the back of his head, shoots, walks away. That's it. So. Kind of fucking cold-hearted, but this is the guy that apparently had a pretty big part in that. So he says a key figure in the 2014 Odessa Trade Union House arson. So yeah, I mean, and this was one of Zelensky's kind of bruisers. One of his he's like the equivalent of that weird fucking Asian dude that follows around Trump. I don't even know what he does. That weird gigantic fucking sumo wrestler looking fuck. He's it seems to be kind of a similar type thing. He was a former right sector leader. He was known for targeting Russian speakers, destroying Soviet monuments, and suppressing anti-mobilization dissent. So, there's a video I was referring to. So, yeah, I mean, and I don't know if any people have really, if much has come of this, especially since I'm pretty sure if I recall, I mean, obviously we're dealing with Zelensky now, so it looks like the West kind of got their way. So it almost is like, oh, oopsies, we just kind of forgot about this. So, I mean, dozens of people died, and I'm not aware if there were ever any arrests, but I've been scrolling through all these, reading these this morning. It looks like it's a pretty common theme that pretty much seems like whether maybe there were people who died or not, is pretty much most people died, or not died, but most people got away with it for the most part. Like nothing really came of this, legally. Which I guess it kind of makes sense considering this movement, this whole fire was in pursuit of the Western-backed agenda. So yeah, it's and here's right here a video of these teenage girls making Molotovs here to used to set the building on fire. So man, wild story. I'm just like, it's one of those ones I'm like, man, I'm just learning about this. So. Yeah, so it says the perpetrators walk free here. Yeah, and that was a common thing. So once again, I say that not knowing if maybe there was an arrest here or there, but it seems to be the consensus amongst the people in the know here is yeah, nothing really ever came to this legally. So yeah, wild fucking story. Someone says, did I see the EPA deregulation announcement? No, I did not. Feel free to tag me on Twitter, and I'll gladly bring it up on another day. I don't know anything about that one. I see Zionists, 2 Zionists, 1 cup. They said they're trying to do the same thing in Iran. I'm almost so sure that the Zarif crowd is compromised. Hopefully we can keep him out after the recent statements by the leader about such Western-oriented bunch. Oh, yeah, 2 Zionists, 1 cup. I know you've said before you were Iranian. Are you an American Iranian? Are you in America right now, or are you literally in Iran? Because I'm just curious. I mean... So I don't know. I don't really even know who the fuck the Zarifs are, to be completely frank with you. So, yeah, here we go. Not nice guys, as Israel has the blood of American citizens on their hands too. All right, let's get into another story. No comment. He's okay. I was just curious if you were living in America or if you were living overseas. I get it. I get the anonymity here. Trust me. All right, let's go ahead and get into the next story. Here we go. Yesterday, this is Jacob J here. I just had yesterday our third part of our False Memory Syndrome Foundation series dropped yesterday. But surprisingly, in the promo I put out for the tweet. Actually, let's watch that promo. Nah, you guys can watch the promo. It's literally on my YouTube and Rumble channel, so you can watch the promo for it on there. It's also on Twitter, but you kind of did a little promo, kind of digging into the Operation Phoenix and kind of the concept of whether the government created serial killers as a result. So that was a little short there. So go check that out. It's like I said, it's on YouTube. It's on Rumble as well. You're not gonna be able to get it on any of the audio stuff, but because that'd be weird. Who the fuck's gonna put a little clip like that in audio? But anyways, he shared in that promo. There was a bunch of different conversations going on in there, and in there he dropped a little thread of his about the dad of Ed Kemper, who was a fairly prolific serial killer. And now dad, we'll go ahead and get into it. You'll see. You'll understand as we go along the weirdness of this. But let's go ahead and get into that. All right. Edmund Emil Kemper Jr., father of serial killer Ed Kemper, enlisted in the U.S. Army in June 1939, later serving in World War II as Special Forces. After the war, he tested atomic bombs in the Pacific Proving Grounds before returning to California and finding work as an electrician. So this guy, he is the father of a prolific serial killer. He was Special Forces, which we'll get into some of the craziness of that. And then after all of that excitement, then he went to go essentially being the guy who was doing the nuclear tests in Bikini Atoll. So kind of wild, especially if you're one of those guys out there who's like, nukes are fake and gay. This very much is like a holy shit, maybe nukes are fake and gay. But all right, let's keep going. Edmund Emil Kemper III, born December 18th, 1948, a.k.a. the Co-Ed Killer, is a U.S. serial killer serving 8 consecutive life sentences after being convicted of murdering 7 women and 1 girl between 1972 and April 1973. Years later, a 15-year-old Kemper murdered his paternal grandparents. Now, I do want to make a note of it just because to reduce confusion, because when I was reading this initially, I had to kind of dig around to figure it out, because I was like, what the hell? Because there you have his dad named Ed Kemper. He's named Ed Kemper, and on top of all of that, his grandpa is named Ed Kemper. Now this was his paternal grandparents he killed. So this Ed Kemper is the serial killer is Ed Kemper III, or Edmund Emil or whatever. But Ed Kemper III, he killed the first Ed Kemper, and his dad is Ed Kemper II. So just to clear that up, because I was a little confused, I had to figure it out. But all right, let's keep going. Especially because just to kind of clear up who we're talking about at what different point during this thing and stuff. Well, I think we'll mostly be talking about the dad, but it's still interesting either way. So. In July 2013, the Congressional Gold Medal was awarded collectively to the 1st Special Service Force, FSSF, in recognition of superior service during World War II. Edmund Emil Kemper Jr. was a member of this elite force of soldiers, but he died in 1985. Now, keep in mind, Jr. is the dad. So, all right. The 1st Special Service Force was better known as the Devil's Brigade, or simply the Black Devils. They were lumberjacks, miners, hunters, and farmers from the U.S. and Canada, trained at a then-secret base in Montana, Fort William Henry Harrison. So here is their insignia right here, the Black Devils, so you can see that. So I guess it was like a USA-Canada thing, so it was, I guess, kind of like a joint operation. And here we go, you can see the unit here of the guys. All right. According to the Sun, Edmund Emil Kemper Jr. held the rank of sergeant in the FSSF. This is what was described as a suicide brigade, said Ed in a 1991 interview. He continued, he goes off to war and he does some terrible things. He can't talk about those things. All right, here is a video from Ed Kemper. This is the serial killer I was referring to. Here is a video talking about his dad and other similar things. So let's go ahead and play this.
What I resented was I had a mother, father worked. What I resented was I had a mother, I had a father. Father worked, he brought in a big paycheck. We had a nice house. We had friends, we went to school, right? We had birthdays, we had Christmas, we had vacations. He had Saturday night with the poker buddies out in the guest house by the garage. We were living pretty good. And she absolutely hated that. This stereotypical response of this deadhead, this muttonhead she's married to, of wanting to go out and play cards in a smoke-filled room, drinking beer and with these old war buddies. See, I had another problem. My father was in the 1st Special Service Force in World War II. They did a book and a movie called The Devil's Brigade. He was a combat sergeant in that group. And he volunteered for that as a single man. They would not take married men. That's how my parents met. She was working as a secretary in Helena, Montana, the capital city. He's a few miles out of town at an old, retired, closed-down cavalry fort for the U.S. Army that was reopened as a secret base for these guys to train out of at Fort William Henry Harrison, just outside of town. They got to know each other. They quite, it wasn't secretly, but it was very quietly got married, because if they'd have known he got married, he'd have been kicked out of the group. This is what was described as a suicide brigade. 5,000 men trained in all these devastation ways, right? He goes off to war, and he does some horrible things. He can't talk about those things.
All right. All right, here's a sergeant. I don't know. That's not, whatever. Okay. It's kind of weird that he would only get to sergeant. It's the second lowest grade of NCO. I forget what rank that is in Army, because there's sergeant in pretty much every branch. So I'm trying to remember what level, because it is kind of, if he only got to sergeant, that's kind of fucking wild. E5. Okay, so well, that's a fucking that's weird. I'm pretty sure E5 is a staff sergeant for Air Force as well. All right, whatever. Either way, so he made it to like E5, which I don't know. It's like middle of the road. I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends how many years he was doing this. It doesn't seem like that. You'd think doing some crazy spooky shit like this, you'd get a little bit higher. But all right, let's keep going. What kind of terrible things is he referring to? Let's examine reports about the Devil's Brigade and the actions they were later awarded the Congressional Gold Medal for in 2013. Here is a excerpt where it says, force members received rigorous and intensive training in stealth tactics, hand-to-hand combat, the use of explosives for demolition, parachuting, amphibious warfare, rock climbing, mountain warfare, and as ski troops. They also got here, he says, the North Americans' favorite activity, though, was the death raids, heading out almost every night with charcoal, blackened faces, knit caps instead of helmets, and loose gear taped to prevent rattling. The raiders would silently slash the throats of sleeping Germans and prisoners, then steal back their own lines with prisoners just before dawn. A recent entry lamented, the Black Devils are all around us at night. They are upon us before we even hear them coming. General Frederick added a gimmick to fuel the enemy's fear. He ordered courtesy calling cards printed that displayed the North Americans' insignia and the words, Das Dick and Kommet noch. The worst is yet to come. Forcemen pasted the stickers on the faces or helmets of Germans that they had dispatched, and Devil's Brigade intelligence reported the psychological impact of these tactics was devastating. And here's the photo of it. This first special force, they're using a little arrowhead to indicate who they are. It's, once again, says USA, Canada on it, so it's a joint operation, clearly. Wow. Okay. So, what the fuck? Stupid Twitter. Where did this go? All right. So this was a highly trained unit of soldiers trained in and focused on psychological warfare and pure brutality. Regardless of your feelings of World War II and the role of the U.S., their story is an amazing piece of military war history, and then he kind of provides a link to read more, so which you guys can do if you want. We're not going to do that. So this is what the Devil's Brigade did in World War II. Primarily located in the Marshall Islands, an area of 140,000 square miles, the Pacific Proving Grounds is an active U.S. nuclear testing range still operated by the Department of Energy today. Between 1946 to 1962, a total of 105 nuclear tests were performed. These tests were atmospheric and underwater tests with high yields. Although the Marshall Islands tests are only 14% of all U.S. tests, it makes up nearly 80% of total yields detonated by the U.S., an estimated 210 megatons. The largest being 15 Mount Castle Bravo shot in 1954. So you can see the videos of this. Pretty wild. Pretty cool. The first test was during Operation Crossroads, the first detonations after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Two 21-kiloton fission bombs were tested at Bikini Atoll. Able detonated altitude of 520 feet on July 1st. Baker detonated depth of 90 feet underwater on July 25th. So, you can see these and the difference being one is underwater, one is not. So boom, I think that would look like it'd be the one that'd be underwater if I had to guess. And then here's another one, boom. So you can see the difference. They're obviously testing out different methods, whether underwater, above, kind of like there's also like there's like below ground, the below water, there's like at surface level, there's like, I believe, detonations above, ground level, stuff like that. So for someone to have worked at Pacific Proving Grounds, especially in the beginning, someone would have had to attain what is known as Q clearance. A security clearance provided by the Department of Energy required to access top secret or restricted data. Unfortunately, trail documents go dry during this part of Ed Jr.'s life. Him working at PPG and blowing up nukes is confirmed, but nothing else. I don't believe it is that much of a stretch to assume that Edmund Emil Kemper Jr. was given Q clearance. Eventually, Ed leaves the growing tropical military base that the U.S. just bombed to hell. He headed to California and settled in a well-paying job as an electrician. The documents dried up involving his military connections. So anyone who's read Program to Kill can understand why this is interesting. Also, I found it, while this means basically nothing, I found it interesting that he's an electrician, because I'm pretty sure that's what Dutroux was as well. But that obviously that doesn't mean all electricians are fucking running child trafficking rings out there. So all right, let's check back in the chat. It's been a while since I checked in on y'all. So here we go. Suzanne says he lives in the U.S., but he comes and goes because of family. He says he's trying to sound mysterious for some reason. Okay. Ed Kemper gives some pretty good interviews. He's a Nephilim. Yeah, he's tall as fuck. No, okay. Ed Kemper is Q. Yeah, I had that thought too when I saw that that's a thing. Q clearance. Isn't that interesting, huh? All right, let's. I had another story I was going to go into, but I think we'll just finish up with Yeakey. I think I want to get into that. Man, I really gotta. You know what, guys? I'm going to go ahead and let you guys know. It's going to be a blank screen for like 30 seconds. So if you're listening to this later, fast forward. I really got to go to the bathroom, and I'm not going to bother editing this out later. So I'll be right back, and then we're going to get immediately into a Yeakey story. We're getting to Hoffman's Yeakey article. I planned on reading that yesterday, but I figured I'd take the time to read it. I'm behind. I don't have a ton of content today anyway. So, hey, we're going to read a long-ass article. So you guys can get the Hoffman article read to you by me. But all right, I'll be right back. I'm just going to go hit the loo, and we'll be Hey, all right, back. Told you I'd be super fucking quick. All right, cool. All right, we're back. All right, let's go ahead and get right into it. There was another one I was going to get into, but we'll save that for another day. Let's go ahead and get into the Yeakey story. And once again, this is on libertarianinstitute.org. I told you guys the other day, that's the largest public archive in the world of Oklahoma City bombing archive. So there's a place to go. Also, you go to libertarianinstitute.org/OKC. And once you get there, like kind of roughly, not exactly the top right, you got to scroll down a tiny bit. Basically off to the right there, almost top right, there's a little search bar, and basically kind of operates like Google. You type in whatever thing, whether it's surveillance tapes, and then boom, it'll give you all the different articles about surveillance or documents and articles, etc. Whether it be 302s, whether it be specific articles by, J.D. Cash or Wendy Painting or Hoffman or any of the many people who wrote a bunch of stuff on this. They'll likely be there. So, and you just type it in there, and it gives you. I don't think it's chronologically, but it's kind of like literally like set up like Google. It's like the most meaningful to your search. Boom, shows up. So so for this, I typed in Yeakey, and probably I think within the first 5, the Hoffman article came up. But all right, let's go ahead and get into it. Someone says so quick, it's like you piss in a bottle nearby. No, the bathroom's like literally right there. So all right, let's go ahead and get into this story. All right, the death of Oklahoma City police officer Terrence Yeakey. This is from the Washington Weekly by David Hoffman. Family on quest for answers meets harassment, intimidation, and surveillance. Oklahoma City on May 8th, 1996, only 3 days before Sergeant Terrence Yeakey was to receive the Oklahoma Police Department's Medal of Valor, he committed suicide. The 30-year-old cop was found in a field near El Reno, not far from where prison guard Joey Gladden committed suicide. His wrists were slashed in numerous places, as was his neck and throat. Apparently not satisfied with his initial attempt to take his life, he got out of his car, walked a mile and a half over rough terrain, then pulled out his gun, shot himself in the head. In a manner paralleling that of El Reno prison guard Joey Gladden, the press claimed Yeakey led a troubled family life, having been recently divorced from his wife Tanya and separated from his two daughters, aged 2 and 4, whom the Daily Oklahoman claimed he was not permitted to see due to a restraining order. Sorry, I just realized I have this piss comment up the whole. I don't think that's smart. All right, I was looking at these chats real quick since I'm back over here anyways. All right, the elite love people who have piss bottle. What does that even mean? All right, let's get back into it. Some accounts suggest that Yeakey was reluctant to receive the Medal of Valor due to his guilt over being injured in the Murrah building. His injury prevented him from helping more bombing victims. He didn't like it, said his supervisor, Lieutenant Joanne Randall. There are some people that like to be heroes and some that don't. He was not one that wanted that. He had a lot of guilt because he got hurt, added fellow officer Jim Ramsey. Apparently there was much more behind Officer Terrence Yeakey's reluctance to be honored as a hero. He kept telling me it wasn't what I thought it was, said his ex-wife Tanya Rivera, that they were only choosing officers who were not even at the site. You know, who didn't see anything, to take public rewards, recognition, that sort of stuff. They started pressuring them and taking the rewards, added Rivera. There came a time about mid-year where they were forcing him into going to these award ceremonies, as in, yes, you could not go, but we'll make your life hell. The story of the reluctant hero, she added, was nothing more than a real thin veil of truth, which covered up a mountain of deceit. Terry wanted no part of it. His sister Vicki Jones agreed. Terry hated that stuff. I'm no hero, he would say. Nobody that had anything to do with helping these people in that bombing, helping those people in that bombing are heroes. Why would the Medal of Valor recipient make such a bizarre sounding statement? In a letter he wrote to a bombing victim and friend, the officer tells the real reasons for his reluctance to be honored as a hero. All right, now we're getting into the Ramona letter. This is a letter to Ramona McDonald, who has been used as a source multiple times. She's an anonymous source, so that's the kind of thing that's like unique about her. Although I will say I've talked to Tanya. She corroborates her existence as a, as an individual there. She changed her name at some point because she, I guess, kind of like Tanya, was one of the vocal people from the start, and things got a little weird. Her essentially, if really affected her life, and so she had to change her name and start acting, essentially behaving under a pseudonym, and and she kind of like slowly pulled back from the public view to where she no longer was really involved in articles and stuff anymore. She was involved in the most recent one with Thomas Lake and CNN. So, but she's one I'd love. She is after Tanya, who I've already interviewed. She's probably like one of the interviews I'm most interested in doing. So if any of you guys know Ramona McDonald, if you can get a hold of her, let her know. I would love to talk to her. But yeah, this is a letter. This is a letter that Terrence Yeakey wrote to her. Now, for those, just to give a little context here, Ramona was kind of working with, I believe it was Heroes of the Heart, or is the name of it, and Tanya was as well. They kind of worked together a lot there, and this was a area where survivors were kind of coming together and kind of sharing their stories or sharing information, and a lot of these people were individuals who didn't really like the official narrative, and or not like it, but they didn't agree with the official narrative, and yeah, it kind of became like especially Ramona's place kind of became almost like an unofficial clearinghouse for like documents and information, of that. Keep in mind, this is the 90s, so this is like, yeah, there sort of was internet, but not really. So this was like a clearinghouse for like documents and stuff and information. That's where people were coming together and talking. So yeah. So this is how this is kind of a short explanation of kind of how she got that letter and how she was interacting with Terry. Because he was kind of, like I say, they were friends. They had kind of come together after the bombing and kind of were like talking about like, something's off here. So anyways, this is a letter that Terry sent to Ramona. And I will let you know, there's like a pages missing and stuff. And and the lore of like where this came from is a little convoluted, which is another reason I'd love to interview Ramona. But all right, let's go on. I hope that whatever you hear now and in the future will not change your opinions about myself or others with the Oklahoma City Police Department. Although some of the things I'm about to tell you is very disturbing. Keep in mind I'm reading this his words, so if the grammar is off, that is what it is. I don't know if you recall everything that happened that morning or not, so I'm not sure if you know what I'm referring to. The man that you and I were talking about in the pictures I have made the mistakes of asking too many questions as to his role in the bombing, and was told to back off. I was told by several officers he was an ATF agent who was overseeing the bombing plot, and at the time the photos were taken, he was calling his report of what had just went down. I think my days as a police officer are numbered because of the way my supervisors are acting, and there's a lot of secrets floating around about my mental state of mind. I think they are going to write me up because of my ex-wife and a VPO, which is a victim protection order or something like that. I don't know. Essentially, it's like a what's the word I'm looking for? Now I can't even think of the one. What's the thing most people think of? The restraining order. It's a similar thing to restraining order. But to back up on the ATF story, when I had Tanya on the show, she did talk about that. For those who are interested, go check that out. And it looked like Terry and maybe even Loudenslager, maybe even was it what's his name? I always want to say Jolly West. It's the not Chaplain. It's I always want to say Jolly West or Chaplain Poe. Chaplain Poe. We'll get into this later. He's kind of an asshole. But I'm trying to remember who the fucking other guy is. The doctor. There was that one doctor who died too under mysterious circumstances. So between those three people, all of which died under mysterious circumstances, it looks like at least two of them, I think, may have confronted who I believe ends up being Lucas Franey about some of the weirdness of that morning. And essentially kind of got into some verbal conflicts with them. So, yeah. I told you about talking to Chaplain Poe. Well, the bastard wrote up in a report stating that I should be relieved of my duties. I made the mistake of thinking that a person's conversation with a chaplain was private, which, by the way, might have cost me my job as a police officer. A friend at headquarters told me that Poe sent out letters to everyone in the department. That bitch, Joanne Randall. I always love that part of the letter because he's capitalized, so you gotta say it like that. I told you about is up to something. I think it has something to do with Poe. If she gets her way, they will tar and feather me. I was told that Jack Poe had written up a report on every single officer that has been to see him, including Gordon Martin and John Avery. Now, once again, I'm going to back up and give some little more context than that. Anyone aware? I mean, I'm not a cop. I've never been a cop. I'm not a cop. So I don't know how it works for cops, if it's different, but I was military. I was active duty military for 11 years. There are chaplains, and this guy, Jack Poe, is a chaplain. And so I would assume it's a similar structure. The whole concept of a chaplain is it's supposed to be a safe space. It's supposed to be somebody you can go to talk to, and you don't have to worry about this affecting your career. So the whole idea, unless, as when it comes to any, individual out in the world, when it comes to like legal protection, it's kind of the same thing as like a priest or a, therapist. Like they're not allowed to say shit about what you say, unless it's like, you're like expressing that you're going to go hurt someone or something. And then that's different. That's the same idea here, is my understanding. So at least in the military, the chaplains ain't supposed to say shit unless it's like literally someone could get hurt. Aside from that, no, they're supposed to keep everything confidential between you and them. So that's the significance here. I mean, once again, I don't know if maybe somehow it's different in the law enforcement field, but that was obviously he's making a point of it. Knowing what I know now and understanding fully what went down that morning makes me ashamed to wear a badge from Oklahoma City Police Department. I took an oath to uphold the law and enforce the law to the best of my ability. This is something I cannot honestly do and hold my head up proud any longer if I keep my silence as I'm ordered to do. There are several others out there who was what we saw, and even some who played a role in what happened that day. Now it says 2 pages missing. There were. My guess is the more time an officer has to think about the screw up, the more he's going to question what happened. Can you imagine what would be coming down now if that, that's 2 pages missing. Every time I read this, I think back like, man, what were in, like, I don't know how those 2 pages went missing, what happened to those two pages, but man, I bet you there's some juicy shit in there. All right. Can you imagine what would be coming down now if that had been our officers who let this happen? Because it was the feds that did this and not the locals is the reasons it's okay. You were right all wrong, and I'm truly sorry I doubted you and your motives about recording history. You should know that it is going to be one hell of a fight. Everyone was behind you until you started asking questions as I did as to how so many federal agents were arrived at the scene at the same time. Lucas Franey, a BATF agent who claimed he was in the building, was not in the building at the time of the blast. I know this for a fact. I saw him. I also saw full riot gear worn with rifles in hand. Why? Don't make the mistake as I did and ask the wrong people. Now, once again, Lucas Franey, kind of back up. Obviously, gave you that one story, but also with him, he's one of the ones who supposedly had these crazy stories. I don't think he's specifically the one who supposedly broke through a fucking elevator or whatever, but yeah, I mean, obviously he's tried to claim he was in the building, so. I worry about you and your young family because of some of the statements that have been made towards me, a police officer. Whatever you do, don't confront McPherson with the bomb squad about what I told you. His actions and defensiveness toward the bombing would make any normal person think he was defending himself as if he drove the damn truck up to the building himself. I'm not worried for myself, but for you and your group. I would not be afraid to say at this time that you and your family could be harmed if you get any closer to truth. At this time, I think for your well-being, it is best for you to distance yourself and others from those of us who have stirred up too many questions about the altering and falsifying of the federal investigations reports. I truly believe there are other officers like me out there who would not settle for anything but the truth. It is just a matter of finding them. The only true problem as I see it is, who do we turn to then? It is vital that people like you, Eddie Smith, and others keep asking questions and demanding answers for the actions of our federal government and law enforcement agencies who knew beforehand and participated in the cover. By the way, Eddie Smith was the, I forget her name, daughter of... what's her name? I can't think of her name right now. She's like a really big figure in this. But she's the one whose kids died. She had like it's just like pretty much almost damn near every Oklahoma City bombing book. It's like one of the initial scenes they tell you about opening up is she worked, I want to say at like she didn't work in the Murrah Federal Building. Between her and her mom, and I don't know if Glenn, her stepdad, did or not. But either way, between her and her mom, they worked over in the IRS building. I think it was like right down the road, but it was complimentary, the daycare. So it was free daycare, essentially, is my understanding. I might be wrong. But the idea is they would drop their kids, they would drop her kids, her mom's grandkids, off every day when they went to work. And it was, that day they were like, I want to say they were like 2 and 4 or something. It's really fucked up. It's a sad story. But yeah, this is, they're one of the most like probably famous people you'll see, when it comes to this whole story. But, yeah, this is probably one of the biggest tear jerking stories is, cause both the kids died. So yeah, it's a pretty off story. So anyways, Eddie Smith is the mother of those children. So, and she was known for like kind of being, I guess a little bit, I guess you could say a bit of a firebrand. She was pretty indignant, anytime, she said a lot of shit that was kind of like, what the fuck's going on? We want answers. She kind of played that sort of role. And she's someone that's like, both my kids are dead. Like, why do I not know what's going on? So she took up, in the media, she kind of was a big deal at that time. Sad truth of the matter is that they have so many police officers convinced that by covering up the truth about the operation go wrong, that they're actually doing our citizens a favor. What I want to know is how many other operations have they had that blew up in their faces. Makes you stop and take another look at Waco. I would consider it an insult to my profession as a police officer and to the citizens of Oklahoma for any of the city, state, or federal agents that stood by and let this happen to be recognized as anything other than their part in participation in letting this happen. For those who ran from the scene to change their attire to hide the fact that they were there should be judged as cowards. If our history books and records are ever truly corrected about the day, it will show this and maybe even some lame excuse as to why it happened. But I truly don't believe it will from what I now know to be the truth. Even if I tried to explain it to you the way that it was explained to me and the ridiculous reason for having our own police departments falsify reports to their fellow officers, to the citizens of the city and our country, you would understand why I feel the way I do about all of this. I believe that a lot of the problems the officers are having right now are because some of them know what really happened and can't deal with it, and others like myself made the mistake of trusting the one person we were supposed to be able to turn to, Chaplain Poe, only to be stabbed in the back. I am sad that I believe my days as a police officer are numbered because of all of this. Obviously, famous last words. I mean, I don't think those obviously weren't literally his last words, but those were his last written words. So let's pop back in the chat. I want to pop in and you guys see what you guys are saying real quick before I keep going. Have you guys ever heard of Jesse Pomeroy? He's the youngest serial killer to be caught in the U.S. back in 1874. No, I haven't. Interesting. He was about 12 when he started his killings. Yeah, Ed Kemper, I think, was 15 when he murdered his grandparents. So, Austin, you are the man from Dan MCG. I'm Jose. Thanks, though. I appreciate it. But, you know, I don't know if... I mean, I understand the confusion. I mean, me and him run 2 shows together. We do these morning dumps together. We also do Already Dead. And they stream to both his channels. So that's probably, or both channels. So that's probably the confusion. I have the No Way Jose podcast here. You're on X. I can see you're actually an X user. So I'm assuming maybe you're watching it on Austin's channel then, because you know, this streams to my YouTube, his YouTube, my Rumble, and then his Rumble, and then both our Twitters. So yeah. So that's probably where the confusion is coming from. But thanks, man. I'm glad you think I'm the man. Austin also is the man. I love Austin. He's cool. All right. Let's keep going. Let's get back into this story. Shortly after the bombing, Yeakey appeared at his ex-wife's. About 2 weeks before his death, he'd come into my home at strange times, said Rivera. 2:30 in the morning, 4 in the morning, unannounced, trying to give me life insurance policies. He kept telling me we needed to get remarried immediately, or me and the girls would not be taken care of. I mean, why would a guy tell you to take a life insurance policy knowing damn well it wouldn't pay for a suicide? He obviously knew he was in danger. Yet Officer Terrence Yeakey was not the type of person to easily show his feelings. He didn't want to tell his family anything that might get them hurt. He told them enough to let me know that it was not what they were making out to be, said Rivera, and that he was disgusted and didn't want any part of it, but he never went into detail. It scared me. Now, just to back up, for those who didn't pick this up, Rivera, whenever I said Rivera, that's Tanya Yeakey. That's her maiden name. So she goes by Yeakey, Tanya Yeakey, or Tanya Rivera. It makes no difference. So just letting you guys know. Yeah. All right. Yeakey also had a girlfriend who worked at El Reno Federal Prison. Ironically, which, by the way, I've never really found anything more on this angle about the Yeakey girlfriend angle. So I've seen I think the only place I've ever seen it referenced ever is in this article. So I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying, like, that's, like, I guess, an area that people could look into a little bit, because I'm like, who the fuck is this? Why have I never heard from her? Or you feel like there should be more information. All right. Ironically, same place that Chloe Gladden worked before he committed suicide, in quotes. Speaking to a police officer friend, the woman said that Yeakey had been having nightmares and was scared. It was about a week after the bombing, said the intermediary. So this girlfriend isn't even, like, directly talking. She's still talking to other people. So, all right. But that the large, strapping cop suddenly became frightened. In fact, according to his girlfriend, the Saturday after the bombing, Yeakey became scared to death and remained that way ever since. Within days of the bombing, according to a sympathetic government source who has spoken to Rivera, Yeakey began receiving death threats. He was at his ex-wife's apartment when the calls came. Afraid for his family, he got up and left. When he give me a second. I'm going to fix the audio. I fucked it up. I think. Is it working still? All right, we're back, baby. Sorry, I bumped the USB. We're good? You guys let me know. Make sure I sound good. Sound good? Good. Everyone good? Yeah, somebody let me know. Sound off. Is it back, or is the sound back? We lost it for a second. So Mossad got Jose, says Jordan. He should be good now. So just let me know. Someone let me know. I see you, JC, dickhead. You let me know. Am I good? Someone says 07. That's a salute thing. So I think we're good now. All right. Sorry about that. Bumped the USB. I need to get a new cord one of these days. It's because it's too bent. So all it takes is the slightest brush, and it fucking, like, it registers like it fell off. All right, let's get back where we were. Let me see. All right, we talked about the death threats. You may have missed that part. I said, according to a sympathetic government source who has spoken to Rivera, Yeakey began receiving death threats. He was at his ex-wife's apartment when the calls came, afraid for his family, got up and left. When he came to my apartment 2 weeks prior trying to give me those insurance policies, he sat on my living room couch and cried and told me how he had a fight with his supervisors, Lieutenant Randall and Major Upchurch. He did not tell me what that entailed, but he was scared. He was crying so badly, he was shaking. He wouldn't totally voice whatever it was, recalled Rivera. It was like he'd be about to just tell me. He'd want to spill his guts, and then he'd stopped and just cried. And that's when he kept insisting that I take the insurance policy. Although Yeakey was concerned for his family, the marriage was not without abuse. Rivera had filed a VPO, Victims Protective Order, against him slightly over 2 years ago. In a fit of temper, Yeakey had once threatened to take his life and those of his wife and children. I think it was said in the haste of, well, he's going to kill all of us kind of thing. Caught under pressure, said Rivera, but that was over a year and a half ago. Yeakey had spent considerable time with his wife and children since then, taking them on family outings and so forth. Nevertheless, which I did kind of address this with Tanya when I had her on. Maybe she did kind of downplay it. Obviously, it's bad. I don't know. This is one that's like, obviously, I don't know. It's not something you really pry about too much. But either way, I mean, even if there was some awful things that had happened, if there was some sort of abuse or something, it's like, I mean, he spent a long time after that. They essentially broke off at that point, and then they kind of worked on getting things back to a better place. I'm kind of the opinion between after, studying this and then talking to Tanya and stuff. I think that had he not died, they probably would have got back together. So that's just my impression. So obviously I'm not saying she said they were romantic at the time of his death or anything like that. So I'm just saying it seemed like they were being friendly and if anything moving in that way. But although I'm not saying there was any romance. I think I may have asked her about that and she kind of implied no. So I don't know. Point being is just like there was like well over a year between those two occasions. So yeah. All right, let's get back into it. All right, although you, all right, sorry. All right. Nevertheless, the Oklahoma City Police Department attempted to use the incident to claim that Yeakey was suicidal. It was on the day of his death, like around 1:30 p.m., that they called Rivera, trying to get her to file a VPO violation based on the 2-year-old report. They wanted me to come down and make some statements against him, Rivera said. On the same afternoon, in between messages on his answering machine from his sister, Vicki Jones, and his supervisor, Lieutenant Joanne Randall, Yeakey had a message from Tanya. This message was at like 5:30 in the afternoon. Recalled Rivera, I sound like I'm whispering and I'm apologizing for waking up at 5:30 in the afternoon on a Wednesday. Seems the intent behind this cleverly crafted deception was to convince the family and potential investigators that Rivera was an evil person who was sleeping with them the night before but went down and filed the VPO the next day. So it looks like we do get into some weird shenanigans where it looks like maybe some sort of weird tech stuff, but we'll keep going. That tape was planted, said Rivera. I never called his house. So I don't know if maybe they took like a previous call from months, weeks, days, years prior or whatever and reused it. But yeah, it seemed the OCPD was playing an elaborate game to sow confusion and mistrust and create the appearance that Rivera was responsible for her ex-husband's death. So it comes out in paper after paper how he's having problems with his ex-wife, how he's not allowed to see his children. They're trying to play up the story of the bitch-ass wife who's trying to get him fired. Yet Rivera claims she never filed a VPO violation. The OCPD wanted to file one, said Rivera, but I never signed it. Rivera claims she had gone to the police station, but simply out of concern for her ex-husband who had been acting strangely. So essentially she talked to the cops, was like, hey, he's acting odd, and then I guess they decided to act on the VPO. Nobody ever said, Miss Yeakey, Terry's missing. Do you know any place he might have gone to? They never told me that they weren't able to locate him, that they were concerned. Nothing. I never knew he was missing. Officer Terrence Yeakey's death was a tragedy. But if OCPD officials were concerned over their fellow officer's death, they didn't show it. Almar Jarahi, Yeakey's natural mother, told me that no one from the department ever called after his death. Even Yeakey's two best friends on the police force never called to offer their condolences, she claimed. Why? Were they guilty about their silence over their friend's death? Now, I will say, I want to say it's Almar, I believe, is the one that Tanya claims is the, not like, essentially she gave up to Terrence, essentially. So, like, I guess they had a relationship as an adult, but, like, not, from my understanding, not a very good, weren't close. It wasn't really like his mother in his sense. So I'm just saying, when it comes to Almar, I believe you kind of want to keep that with a grain of salt, kind of deal. If Officer Yeakey's death was anything more than a suicide, the OCPD didn't go to any great lengths to find out. While his death occurred in El Reno, the OCPD took over the crime scene, squeezing the El Reno Police Department out of the picture. The OCPD's media relations officer, Captain Ted Carlton, explained, it was our police officer who was killed. It's not uncommon to take over the investigation in the case of a smaller police agency. So to recap, they took over this didn't even happen in in the OCPD jurisdiction, but they took it over anyways. But Carlton could cite no official role or statute for this decision. Was OCPD attempting to keep El Reno from discovering something we aren't supposed to know? I mean, I don't know. I mean, you could also, I know they said they didn't cite a reason, but I would assume maybe if they had more resources. I know I always bring this up whenever this comes up. So I don't know. I mean, it is weird though. Although forensics are also standard procedure in the event of a violent or suspicious death, especially that of a police officer, Yeakey's car was never dusted for prints. And the next day, they gave us the damn car, said Miss Gerardi. It was full of blood. When Yeakey's brother-in-law, Glenn Jones, inspected the dead man's car, he discovered a bloody knife stashed underneath the glove compartment. Yet, according to the responding officer, Yeakey had apparently used a razor blade. Where did the knife come from? Since no forensic investigation was conducted, this remains clear. No autopsy was ever conducted. There were common sense things that were wrong about the whole thing that makes it so weird, added Mr. Rahi. It just doesn't seem right. Why would policemen and the authorities make such common mistakes that would leave questions? It's just really weird. If Yeakey's death was a suicide, he left no note. Although he was upset over his divorce, according to the family, he was not suicidal. It's also unlikely that he abused drugs, as he was an instructor at DARE, a program designed to keep children off drugs. Former Canadian County Sheriff Clint Bowler, who claims to have known Yeakey, doesn't concur with this analysis. Bowler said that Yeakey showed up at his house in El Reno on the afternoon of his death. His car stopped at an angle in the middle of the road. When Bowler and his girlfriend, Kate Allen, a paramedic, ran outside, they found the police officer virtually passed out. He couldn't tell us his name initially, said Allen. He was ill, and he was very anxious. His heart rate was rapid. He was sweaty. He told us he'd been having concentration problems. He hadn't slept. He had all the appearance, my first guess would be, of someone who was having emotional problems. And my second guess would be of some kind of substance abuse problem, but that's a pure guess. Bowler added that Yeakey said he hadn't eaten, was throwing up, taking medication, and incoherent. He was taking medications for his back, said Bowler. He had 4 or 5 medications in his car. Now, I would be pretty interested in what kind of medications he had. Keep in mind his mid-90s, so like he could have easily been having some sort of opiates and not making any sort of implications that he had any sort of opiate problems or anything like that. But it's like, I don't know, people, when it comes to like opiates, I feel like in the mid-90s, probably people didn't have quite as good of an understanding of those. And if he had just got them for his back, I mean, those are strong drugs. And if you take them wrong or mix them with things, or you take them on an empty stomach or this or that, or you take too much, man, that shit can fuck you up. So like, I know that could have been, it could have something to do with that. So, but he also, I mean, I'm kind of jumping at the gun here a little bit, but also, Terry had sickle cell anemia, so this likely could this is what those episodes from that would look like, I guess, is my understanding. So, anyways, after Canadian County deputies took Yeakey away, relatives came and drove his car home. That night, according to Bowler, he went out the window. Bowler's account jives with oh shit, I accidentally skipped a sentence. We tried to get him to go to the hospital, said Allen. This is a paramedic girlfriend. We tried desperately to talk him into that. As I understand, the deputy took him to his sister's house because he refused to go to the hospital. All right. Bowler's account jives with what Yeakey's sister Vicky said. She told her mother that Terry seemed exhausted that evening. She had tried to give him some soup, but he had thrown it up. Late that night after a nap, they found him in the kitchen looking for his keys. According to Mr. Rahi, Terry told his brother-in-law, Glenn, I need to go. I'm fine. Yeah, now rethinking this now, too, with like maybe like an opiate. Man, I wish I had I need to ask Tanya. Maybe she didn't even know. I don't know if she would know either. I'm kind of curious if she would be aware of what drugs he was prescribed because, and once again, I'm not trying to make some sort of like drug addict angle. I'm just thinking about it. I'm like thinking the state of mind that he was in, and now you throw opiates in the mix. Man, you are white knuckling riding that fucking lightning, dude. If you're like literally like, oh no, the whole world's out to get me right now. I think they might try to kill me. My family's in trouble. You're not sleeping. You're not eating. You're fucking freaking the fuck out. And then on top of that, you throw opiates. Oh my God, you're gonna lose your fucking mind. You're gonna be like, so yeah. I just definitely would not be helpful. And I can also see too, like in that stressful, anxious situation, that you would almost kind of compulsively take more than you should, just kind of almost like a tick, like you're like, oh shit, like I got to do something. I could see that, especially since you do get you would almost get like a sort of feeling of relief possibly from the drugs, so you would just kind of naturally be like, oh shit. So I don't know. Anyways, on to the next thing. All right. Vicky then called Mr. Rahi and said, Mom, I can't worry about Terry. Okay, shit. She told her mother, this is back to the sister, Yeakey's sister. She said that Terry seemed exhausted. She tried to give him some soup. He thrown it up. Late that night after a nap, they found him in the kitchen looking for his keys. He said, Glenn, I need to go. I'm fine. Vicky then called Mr. Rahi and said, Mom, I can't worry about Terry. There's nothing we can do, and went back to sleep. The next day, Vicky called her mother up screaming Terry had been found dead. Basically, just let him go, said Bowler. We told those people he needed help. We knew he was suicidal. He had all the classic symptoms. However, what Bowler and Allen didn't know was that Yeakey had sickle cell anemia, a blood cell-related condition that caused seizures. It was these seizures, Rivera explained, that would occasionally cause her ex-husband to act out of sorts or even slip into unconsciousness. In spite of his medical condition, Rivera insisted that Terrence Yeakey was a health fanatic. His prescriptions were for his condition, he said, but he used only the minimum amounts. According to Canadian County Sheriff Deputy Mike Ramsey, no relation to OCPD Officer Jim Ramsey, who drove Yeakey home, Yeakey was not suicidal. He didn't give me any indication that he was out to do harm to himself, said Ramsey. He seemed more disoriented and tired. There are many things about Officer Yeakey's death that remain a mystery. While Bowler described a man on drugs, the medical examiner claims they didn't bother to conduct a drug test because it cost too much. The ME's field investigator, the medical examiner, Jeffrey Legg, also reported that Yeakey had been drinking heavily the day before, based on statements by OCPD homicide detectives Dacus and Mullinex. Yet Terrence Yeakey didn't drink, and their own report concluded there was no alcohol in the body at the time of death. So you have these two detectives claiming he's drinking a bunch, no alcohol found in the body. To be fair, I don't think alcohol stays in your body probably too long, so if it's the day before, I guess it could be out, but still, it's this Mullinex. Keep an eye on that Mullinex name too. I'm pretty sure that comes up again too, and you can kind of see the role he's playing. So, point being is just kind of keep an eye out for the white hats and the black hats essentially, and keep in mind this guy just goes, I think he'd been drinking a bunch. The OCPD also warned Miss Jarahi not to come down to the crime scene. They would pick her up. They said, "Promise us you won't come. If you promise us you won't come, we'll send a car for you," recalled Miss Jarahi. All right, let's take a second, pop in the chat, see what you guys have to say. See, John Black says Tim McVeigh was at Ruby Ridge, so it gives off glowy / MK Ultra vibes. Was he at Ruby Ridge or was it Waco? I think he might have that one wrong, or maybe I have it wrong. Maybe he was at both, but I know he was at Waco. So yeah, I don't know. All right, Masad got Jose. Ephesians 5:11. Enjoy the morning dump. Pretty informative. God bless, brothers. Thanks, man. This is from Ephesians 5:11. Let's look up Ephesians 5:11. I'm kind of curious. What is Ephesians 5:11? I'm just curious since you have what's your name? 5:11. Let's look that up. It says, "Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose." I like that. That's a good. I'm not religious, but that is a great Bible verse. Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. All right, cool. Good Bible verse. Good name. All right, let's get back into this. All right, but the police didn't arrive till 1 o'clock in the morning, 7 hours after the body had been found. I said, "You didn't give anybody the opportunity to see the crime scene?" Mr. Rahi exclaimed. They said, "Well, he's a police officer, and we have that right." I said, "I brought him to the world, and no, you don't have that right." Canadian County sheriffs discovered the abandoned car filled with blood about 2.5 miles from the old Reno reformatory. The OCBT was notified, and Police Chief Sam Gonzalez flew out by chopper. Using dogs, they followed the trail of blood and found the body in a ditch about 1.5 miles from the car. Legg reported that the body was 0.5 mile south of the car, when in fact it was 1.5 miles northeast of the car. So this is why you guys, if you've been paying attention to the show for any length of time and you've heard me talk about Yeakey before, you'll hear me frequently. I try to do my best to be like kind of gonna give the benefit of the doubt to, I guess you could say, the other side of the narrative. I mean, obviously, I'm trying to come down the side of truth, but let's be real. Say with like the Yeakey thing, it's like, you guys know what my take is. So the other side of the narrative would be the idea that like, he did kill himself. So it's like I try to give some benefit of the doubt. I don't believe that, but this is like I try to give him benefit of the doubt. And this is a situation where I do that. Well, frequently whenever I bring up the distance of body distance, a lot of times I won't even like give a caveat. I'll just say 0.5 mile, because it's like. That's the lowest amount. And this is from this guy named Legg, which I forget. I don't remember that name. So as I said, keep track of these names. But obviously the different. I find the difference to be not really that big of a deal. Sort of, not really. I guess it depends. Like if you're someone who knows all the details of the case, it's not a big deal. You're like a half mile or a mile and a half. You're like, and you know all the other information. You're like, yeah, he still didn't kill himself. But now if you don't know all the information, you just know, oh, he's a half mile. You're like, oh, now it's more believable. He got out of his car after doing damage to himself, walked a half mile and offed himself. I think it probably was more like a mile and a half. So, just judging by, my looking into this, but it's a little unclear. And I see frequently cited the half mile figure. So I just go with the half mile, but it likely was probably more like a mile and a half. So, which now a guy with sickle cell anemia, keep in mind, that means he bleeds like crazy. He supposedly did all this. So it says apparently Yeakey had tried to cut himself in the wrists, neck, and throat after losing approximately 2 pints of blood, got out of his car, remembering to lock the doors, walked a mile and a half over rough terrain, crawled over a barbed wire fence, waded through a culvert, then lay down in a ditch and shot himself in the head. As if this weren't strange enough, Yeakey's blood-related condition would have made him too weak to walk the mile and a half from his car to where his body was found, especially after losing 2 to 3 pints of blood, which, take a second if you want, go Google, blood loss and 2 to 3 pints. That's like borderline death. That's like you're losing consciousness. Like you might still have consciousness, but like you're fading. You're basically done for at that point. Nevertheless, the OCBD ruled it a suicide on the spot. Their investigation remained sealed. This reporter was unable to obtain it, and not even the family was allowed to see it. There were so many things that were weird, said Mr. Rahi. My daughter kept going back to the police department. She said, well, what about this? We knew he had a camcorder. We knew he had a briefcase. There are things we never got back. The kid always carried camera and film. He never went anywhere with his camera and briefcase. He had all his important papers in there. We got the camera back. We never got the film back. We never got the briefcase. They said they never saw it. In regards to Yeakey's videos, Detective Molnex, remember that name, who investigated, in quotes, the case for the OCBD, told Vicky Jones, I really don't think you'll want to see those. They contain pornography. Jones didn't believe him and didn't care. I want those tapes, she demanded. So this Molnex guy, the same guy who said he was drinking heavily, now he's telling the family, instead of like you'd think you would handle this with tact in some way, you would say, oh, these are inappropriate, but just saying pornography or just saying like you would think you would skirt the issue. Nope, this Molnex guy, once again, he tells the family, the sister, that like nope, that's porn. You don't want those videos. So the homicide detective finally told her she'd get them back after they'd examined the evidence. 1 minute the guy would say he had them, said Jones. The next minute he'd say, we don't have anything. According to Jones, Molnex then said, now we all love Terry. I hope you understand that, but I'm not going to let you see any pictures. I don't know anything about a briefcase, but if there's anything back there, I'll give you a call and you can come back and get them. And I just sat there and looked at him and I said to myself, you're doing a great performance, but it's not working. Then he got really uptight and said, well, some of us hated Terry. Then he kind of grabbed his face and said, oh shit. For his part, Molnex said no comment either way. He then told me, I don't remember what I said to the lady, but I certainly was not rude to her. This comes as a big shock to me because he was a police officer and a friend of mine. It was a hard thing and it hurt me to have to work it. Captain Carlton likewise feigned shock at Jones's rebuffs and said he would have to know who the officer was who made those statements. He then asked me to have the family contact the OCPD directly, as though they hadn't already done so numerous times. He would meet with them and discuss the case, but that Captain Danny Cochran, chief of the homicide squad, would have to make a decision about whether or not to let the family see the files. Yet Carlton's statements fly in the face of the experiences of not only Yeakey's mother and sister, but those of his ex-wife. In a letter to Police Chief Sam Gonzalez dated 4 September 1996, Rivera writes, needless to say, I have many questions regarding the investigation. What type of weapon was used to inflict the gunshot wound to his head? Who located the body? How could the cause of death be determined with such confidence with the multitude of injuries to his body? And how did he walk the distance indicated in People magazine with the great loss of blood from razor cuts, not only to both wrists, but both his forearms as well as 2 razor cuts to his neck? Not only did he walk this distance, but he struggled with barbed wire fencing to reach his chosen destination to die, then inflicted the gunshot wound to himself. I requested a copy of the investigative report of his death be made available to me. Gonzalez didn't respond. Police officials eventually responded to Vicky Jones's complaints by telling her she needed to see a psychiatrist. They said, we're just trying to protect you. All right, now we get into the surveillance of the harassment of the family, which is actually the exact reason I wanted to read this in the first place. We had, there was like just the other day, I had intended to read this and time kind of got the best of me. So I was like, well, we'll save this for a later day. But Tanya had recently, I saw she had shared some post about the swattings going on or whatever, and she kind of equated to her situation, and so I thought it'd be kind of a good segue to then do this and kind of get into the harassment, and then also even get into how the corroboration of the harassment, because I even saw some comments, I think, in the chat of people kind of a little bit doubting. So we'll go into that. All right. Exactly what were they trying to protect her from? When I called Miss Jarahi, the telltale continuous clicks revealing a tapped phone were clearly present. If Terrence Yeakey's death was a simple suicide, why would law enforcement agencies be tapping the family's phone? The OCBD soon began conducting surveillance on the dead man's family. There was always an officer out there in front of our apartment, said Jones. Anywhere we went, we had an officer or someone in a marked car following us around. It started right after I started going to the police department quite a bit. They also tailed Rivera. When she confronted the officers, they ignored her, hid their faces, or sped off. Cars were parked outside their children's school. When she spoke to school officials about the surveillance one afternoon, she went to work startled to find the conversation on her office answering phone. So she essentially, I would assume she probably called the school, complained, and then later, that exact conversation was on her answering machine. Rivera had spoken to I was wrong about that. Rivera had spoken to the school principal in person. How did the conversation wind up on her answering machine? That's creepy. The harassment against Officer Yeakey's family wasn't limited to mere surveillance. After Rivera met with State Representative Charles Key, her car was broken into. Her house was broken into twice. She finally moved to Enid when the heat became too hot. I lived in an apartment on the 3rd floor with a security alarm in it, said Rivera. I'd come home, the alarm would be off. I'd notice things out of place. There'd be cabinets open that I'd have no reason to have opened. About 2 weeks after Terry's death, Rivera went downstairs around 6:30 one morning to do some laundry. And there was a man downstairs with huge headphones on at 6:30 in the morning, right behind my apartment. The individual who was wearing a jogging suit, wasn't jogging, and was not doing laundry. He looked startled when I came around the corner, said Rivera. I came back down at 8:30 and the guy was still there. It appears that what Rivera was describing was an audio technician with a shotgun mic, a portable surveillance tool designed to pick up conversations through windows and across fields. They are commonly used by private detectives and law enforcement agencies. One day, Rivera came home to find her front door open and off its hinges. When the frightened single mother walked into her bedroom, she found a balloon tied to her door. It read, "Get well soon. These will keep you busy until you do." It seems the OCBD and the FBI thought that Officer Yeakey had passed off some incriminating documents concerning the bombing cover-up to his ex-wife and were intent on obtaining the documents. Their surveillance break-ins and thinly veiled threats soon escalated into more serious incidents. Right before Yee's death, the couple's Ford Explorer began getting mysterious flats, and when I'd roll it into his shop, said Rivera, they'd pull out like 6 or 7 nails. This occurred between 8 and 10 times, she said. Rivera explained that once during a quarrel, Terry had removed some fuses from her car to keep her from leaving. The police knew about the incident, said Rivera, who thought the subsequent events were created by the OCPD to sow mistrust and create a convenient trail of evidence to prove that Yeakey led a troubled family life. Yet while Yeakey admitted to removing the fuses, he repeatedly and adamantly denied that he had damaged the car, a car that was registered in his name and carried his cherished children to and from school. On April 24th, 2 weeks before he was found dead, the Explorer began acting strangely. Rivera pulled into the local AMCO transmission center. She found that it had been tampered with. Somebody who knew what they were doing pulled hoses from your car, said Todd Taylor, the chief mechanic. I'm sorry to tell you this, ma'am, but this is just not something you can pull randomly. Taylor also said he thought Rivera's brakes had been tampered with. So this is before he died too. So about 2 weeks before the story went to press, the Ford's brakes went out suddenly while Rivera was traveling at 40 miles per hour. I went to brakes, said Rivera, and guess what? No brakes. The large 4x4 slammed in the back of a smaller car, damaging it badly. The message is, we can get to you if we want, she concluded. Officer Jim Ramsey also began making his presence felt. All of a sudden, when we moved to Oklahoma City from El Reno, said Jones, there was Ramsey. When we joined a new church, Ramsey was there. Ramsey was everywhere. You turn the corner, there was Ramsey. Everything we did, he was like the helpful old guy. This went on for 2 months, which I do want to say, Ramsey is the one I believe. I mean, maybe it'll get into here before we finish it. Actually, we'll get into more on the Ramsey thing, but Ramsey is one of the ones in the more recent CNN article where he kind of came out and like, oh, I guess I don't believe that he killed himself, which is weird because it's a change of his position in the past. And obviously, if you take into account the role he's playing here, you're like, whoa, okay, we already changed position. And that you were one of the handful of people that was kind of brought on to kind of like carry the story into a new generation makes me a little curious. Maybe it's just coincidence. So, Officer Jim Ramsey, okay, he was keeping tabs on everyone, said Rivera. He was showing up in a lot of places just casually. In fact, places where he knew that people knew me just as well as they knew Terry, and weren't buying into the "it's Tanya's fault" routine. Ramsey tried to claim it was his ex-wife and love for his children he couldn't see that made him commit suicide, she added. He would talk to her friends. How's she taking it? What does she think? Blah, 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 blah. Both Rivera and Jones feel the OCPD officer was sent to babysit them to maintain an ever-present watchful eye. When he showed up, Jones said, I looked at him and said, this is not a friend of Terry's. He was never at the house. I've never met him before. Ramsey, who told People magazine that Yeakey was his dear friend, also told the press that he was Terry's partner. That was a lie, declared Jones. Rivera concurred. The ex-wife said that not only was Ramsey never Yeakey's partner, but the two men didn't even get along. Terry hated Jim Ramsey, said Rivera. He put on a real good performance, she added. He's hiding something, I believe. It burns me up. For his performance, Ramsey was promoted detective and made Officer of the Year. If Terrence Yeakey did have many friends in the police department, they were among the best patrolmen, not the upper echelon. While Detective Mullinex said everybody loved Terry, according to Rivera, the brass hated his guts. Him and Major Upchurch had a hate-hate relationship, she said. For his part, Mullinex claims he was totally unaware of any problems Yeakey was having in regards to what he knew about the bombing. It is my opinion as a 14-year homicide veteran that it was a suicide, said Mullinex. If we thought it was anything other than a suicide, we would have pursued it to the end of the earth. We're not hiding anything. Really? Now we get into an alternate version of events, and we're kind of coming to a close here. Let me check in the chat, see what you guys have to say. All right, so we see somebody says he got Seth Rich. Yes, for sure. That's a real good theory, Jose. When I was a piece of shit junkie, degenerate, opiates were the answer for every one of my problems, and the reward, they steal your soul and make you compulsive. Yeah, and I mean, understanding like how that works, I'm like, I can totally see if you add that into the whole mix, especially in the mid-90s, with all the other crazy stuff going on, that could kind of put him over the edge. All right, here's Ephesians Kids. Sorry to change the subject, but what do you think about Dr. Judy Wood, 9/11 theory about direct energy weapons used in 9/11? Honestly, I've never really looked into it too much, but I mean, I don't know. I guess I wouldn't be surprised, but I mean, I guess I kind of doubt it. But that's without looking into it. So, but that's where I am at. I'm sorry. I mean, if you have anything any good info, feel free to tag me in it, and I'll gladly bring it up on a future episode. According to Rivera, 3 government sources, including a U.S. attorney and a U.S. marshal, hold a slightly different view. As relayed by Rivera, the events in the morning of Officer Yeakey's death transpired as follows. At 9 a.m., Officer Yeakey was seen exiting his Oklahoma City department, police department, Oklahoma City apartment with 9 boxes of videos and files. He then drove to the police station where he had a fight with his supervisors. He was told to drop it or he'd wind up dead. Yeakey was also due for a meeting with the heads of several federal agencies that morning. He apparently decided to skip the meetings, instead driving straight to a storage locker he maintained in Kingfisher. Now, on this piece right here, I don't really know if Hoffman's writing this entirely as speculation, or because it's almost written in a way that he clearly has some information, and I'm assuming these are ones that he doesn't feel as comfortable naming in a matter-of-fact way, so he probably at the end then kind of put it in a speculative way, and just kind of with the assumption that I've talked to people, and these are like little data points that I don't feel as comfortable stating them as fact, because maybe they aren't. So I'm sure he probably heard from somebody that they said drop it or wind up dead, but he's like, I don't know if I feel as comfortable documenting that in my as if it's a matter of fact, but I can add this segment at the end where I'm kind of going to speculation based on the crazy amount of different first or second hand, third hand, whatever reports I heard. You can kind of put it together. But the reason why I kind of bring this up is because specifically in regards to the meeting, according to Ramona McDonald, the most recent CNN article, she goes into, I believe she says they went to the meeting, and then not only did he go to the meeting, he made a point not to bring his service arm or his sidearm, his military, or not military, but his police weapon essentially. Reason being likely because it's because he was apparently kind of sketched out about this meeting. But the problem was this was presented as, the implication is these were some sort of Fedi types that were looking into truth or something along that. They were interested in hearing what he had to say. Like, that's kind of the vagaries we get when it comes to this. And then he goes to this meeting, and then the next time we see him, he's dead. And he didn't bring his gun. But yet, I guess he supposedly killed himself. So, just bringing that up because I'm just saying, like, what time can change. And that was from Ramona McDonald, if I didn't say that. So that was Ramona McDonald. That was the new information she came out with recently in the CNN article. That, yeah, no, he actually, that's actually what he did go, and he didn't bring his gun. So I don't know where he got the first bit of information that he didn't go to the meeting. I don't know. What he didn't realize was the FBI had him under surveillance and began pursuit. The 6-year OCPD veteran and former sheriff's deputy easily eluded his partners. Once at his storage facility, he secured his files. Or did I say partners? His pursuers. What were in the files? According to one of Rivera's sources, incriminating photos and videos of the bombed-out building. Perhaps more. On the way back, the feds caught up with him just outside of El Reno. He had nothing on him at that point, said Rivera, just copies of copies. While it is not known exactly what transpired next, Rivera's confidential source described in intimate detail the state of the dead man's car. The seats had been completely unbolted, the floorboards ripped up, and the side panels removed, all in an apparent effort to find the incriminating documents. There were also burn marks on the floor. Apparently the killers had used Yeakey's car to destroy what little evidence they had discovered. Exactly what happened after Yeakey was stopped and in what order only his potential murderers know for sure. Now, police find the body. At approximately 6 p.m. that evening, Canadian County Deputy Sheriff Mike Ramsey was cruising the area near the old Reno Reformatory when he noticed an abandoned vehicle in a field. Immediately, the hair stood on the back of my neck, said the deputy. Ramsey came upon the empty car, which he immediately recognized as Yeakey's. There was blood on both seats and a razor blade lying on the dash. Yeakey was nowhere to be found. The deputy immediately called for a homicide investigator and taped off the scene. It wasn't until several hours later that police dogs finally located Yeakey's body in a ditch a mile and a half away. While it was a macabre scene, the Oklahoma City medical examiner's report was even more gruesome. The report released from the medical examiners described numerous superficial lacerations on the wrist, arms, throat, and neck, and a single bullet wound to the right temple. The report also showed another curious thing. The bullet had entered just above and in front of the right ear, and had exited toward the bottom of the left ear. Apparently, whoever held the gun held it at a downward angle. So you can see here, coming in here, coming out here. Clearly kind of like, well, I guess here and here would be more like it. So here you go. So already awkward. And once again, I don't think we went over the figure of Yeakey, but he was a big dude. Like, he's probably somewhere in the realm of like 6.5 feet tall. I would guess probably 250 plus. Big boy. Built like a fucking, built like a defensive end or something. Like, he's a big fucking dude. So... in the CNN article, they literally take time to kind of go through all his crazy physical feats. So, all right. Anyways, it would be rather difficult for a large, muscle-bound man. A person shooting themselves would tend to hold the gun at an upward angle at the most level. It would rather difficult for a large, muscle-bound man like Yeakey to hold a heavy service revolver or other large caliber weapon at a downward angle to their head, which it is. It's weird. While it is true that a slug can enter its trajectory or can alter its trajectory once inside the skull, the pathologist in the San Francisco Medical Examiner's Office told me that a 9mm or other large caliber weapon, the type commonly used by police officers, usually tends to travel in a straight line. Especially if it's point blank. Like, I mean, I understand the concept if it's like it's not through and through, but if you're shooting yourself point blank with a 9mm, it's going through and through. Like, it's going through and through. It's going down the route it's going. It's not going any other. But yeah, sure. If someone from fucking 100 yards picks me off with a fucking 22 and it enters my dome, it likely probably doesn't have enough power to make it out the other side. And even if it does, it might do a little bit of bouncing around in there. So, but with a 9mm point blank, no. Perhaps the most revealing evidence was that the wound did not have a stellate, the telltale star shape caused by dissipating gases from the gun's muzzle. The close range of a suicide weapon, such markings would be clearly present, unless, of course, the shooter used a silencer. While Dr. Larry Balding, Oklahoma City's chief medical examiner, quickly ruled the death a suicide, another medical examiner's report would, according to Rivera, surface like an eerie, prescient message from the grave. This other report, quickly redacted and hidden from public view, showed a face that was bruised and swollen. Blood on the body and clothes that was not the dead man's blood type, and multiple deep lacerations filled with grass and dirt, as though the body had been dragged a distance. So this is the other report. This is kind of almost like a mythical report. There's people who claim it, and then it just disappeared. Yeah, according to Rivera, Major Upchurch denied that Yeakey's throat was slashed at all. She was later told by a sympathetic police dispatcher that his throat was indeed slashed deeply. Dr. Larry Balding, who signed off on the Yeakey report, is adamant. I can tell you unequivocally and without a doubt that there was no other medical examiner report. While attending a social function, Rivera claims that her sister had a chance encounter with a mortician who worked on Yeakey's body. She was discussing the strange inconsistencies of his death with someone at the party. When the mortician, not knowing the woman was Rivera's sister, spoke up. Sounds just like a police officer we worked on in Oklahoma City, he said. When asked if that man happened to be Terrence Yeakey, the mortician freaked. When pressed, he told the shocked relative that the dead man's wrist contained rope burns and handcuff marks. A former FBI agent and police officer, the mortician said that Yeakey's lacerations were already sewn up when the body arrived from the ME's office. Dr. Balding's response to this was that the marks were merely skin slippage resulting from the natural decomposition of the body. Yet stranger still, the body was not supposed to go to this particular funeral home at all, but to one in Watonga. While the OCPD was supposed to pay the expenses of the funeral, no funds were ever allocated, according to Rivera. Vicky had to pay off the burial to Russ Worm. It was a funeral home. So I wonder if we paid somebody off to do the job. Was that job to clean up Yeakey so his manner of death wouldn't appear suspicious? This incident is similar to the murder of President Kennedy, whose body was taken to Bethesda Naval Hospital instead of being examined by the Dallas Medical Examiner as is standard procedure. Once there, military pathologists and those controlling them were able to skew their findings to the satisfaction of the murderers. The chief pathologist burned his notes, and years later, when researchers went to examine Kennedy's brain, it was found missing from the National Archives. Apparently, Terrence Yeakey's presumed murderers and those covering his death had not counted this particular mortician's testimony. Said friend Kimberly Cruz, I don't believe he would have done something like that. He was always happy and joking a lot. If the officer was bent on taking his life, it would appear strange since he had spent most of the previous month taking entrance exams for the FBI, which is incredibly ironic. Yeakey and best friend Barry McCrary were both looking forward to becoming FBI agents. Perhaps if he'd known the role that the FBI played in the bombing, perhaps even his own death, he would have changed careers. Like Dr. Don Chumley, that was a doctor's name I couldn't think of earlier, Terrence Yeakey was one of the first rescuers in the Murrah building on April 19th. Had he seen something he wasn't supposed to see? Had he heard something he wasn't supposed to hear? As I mentioned earlier, Dr. Chumley is another individual who died under suspicious circumstances. He died in his private plane under extremely suspicious circumstances. Much like the investigator in the, I can't think of his name right now, in the Franklin scandal. One afternoon, while the family was at police headquarters, an officer who described Rivera as Yeakey's only true friend pulled them off the side and whispered, they killed him. Perhaps the events in the morning of May 8th provide a clue as to who they are. Yet Rivera's sources have warned her away from pursuing an independent investigation. They said 2 Eunice senators would go down if she pursued it. One of them reportedly told Rivera he wouldn't pursue it even if his own mother was in the ground. Yet, Tanya Rivera, a gutsy and intelligent woman, isn't easily frightened. The rest of the family is, and all believe he was murdered. Several police officers I spoke with believe the same thing. Said a relative of a just retired FBI agent who's familiar with the case. I had a gut feeling he was murdered. Oklahoma's chief medical examiner, Dr. Fred Jordan, doesn't agree, which is odd because he's the one who was actually pretty ballsy on the Trinidad thing. I'm kind of curious what the time frame was. I believe that, I want to say actually, now that I think about it, I'm almost certain the Trinidad thing was earlier. So if that's the case, it kind of makes sense that Fred would fall in line. Because those who follow the Trinidad story know that Fred Jordan was a fucking hero at the beginning of that. And by the end, he kind of caved. Which, I mean, from the stuff I've read, it seemed like he was extremely scared for his life. I believe, I'm kind of talking to my ass a little bit here, but I believe, I want to say Trinidad or Jesse, obviously not Kenneth, the dead one. But I believe Jesse even claimed that he talked to Fred and Fred was like scared out of his mind or something. And that's when he was like, nope, no. There's clearly, I don't remember if he's like, it was the suicide or if I'm not pushing further or what he said, but that was when he was like, I'm done. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying, keep that for those who know of Fred Jordan. You're like, that's weird because he's usually pretty good. I think this was after he'd kind of been forced to fall into line. He says that people tend to weave some intriguing tales regarding suicide. You'd be amazed at some of the tales people come up with. Others, like Clint Bowler, take a slightly different tact. He was always trying to be tough and macho, but he was really the other way. He was supposed to always do the manly thing, but it really wasn't what he wanted to do. He was really a gentle type person. He was a sensitive person, said Rivera. He got into police work because he really cared about people. He couldn't have turned his head to this. Maybe Officer Terrence Yeakey was too gentle and caring for his own good. Maybe still, Officer Yeakey was murdered. Now, I will say these notes here at the end are actually super important. I would recommend people go check this out, go read the notes. I also, on my series, my Oklahoma City bombing series, there was the one, I believe it's called Terrence Yeakey Didn't Kill Himself, is literally the name of it. That's the one, I think it's like, and then colon, examining the sources. In that episode, I read Ramona's letter at the beginning. I believe I read Ramona's letter. We also go over the different sources. So this is where, in this, I go through essentially the sources or whatever, all his different, what's the term I'm looking for? I forget what it's called. We put him at the end of a fucking, citations, I guess. I don't know if this would be citations, but you know what I mean. This is his little data points, kind of, but like, and this is how I know this, and this is how I know that. And it's worthwhile going through this, because the reasoning being kind of in that episode, I kind of go into how you can corroborate all the different things going on. And that's, in a good way, is kind of looking at these notes at the end, because you can be like, oh, this person said that person said this. So that's where you get, you can figure that out. So you go, oh, so like, it sounds crazy. You're like, oh my God, this one harassment claim. Then you look at it and you're like, oh shit, that's corroborated by this person, that person, this person. You're like, okay. So I highly recommend you guys go check that out. But with that, guys, I think we're gonna go ahead and get out of here, man. I went way longer than I want to. Let's pop into the chat, to see what you guys all have to say, and then we'll get out of here. Someone says case closed on 9/11. TFH episode was really good. I don't know. 9/11 bores me, to be completely honest. I tried to watch some of that. I just couldn't get into it. Someone saying that Cage is control opposition. Maybe it is. I don't know. Oh, hey, Hip Hop Head, you're new here. What's up, dude? What to do? Nice to see you here. Pop in every day at 10 a.m. Eastern, whether it's on my channel or Austin's. It'll be there. It might not be me hosting, but it might be Austin. But pop in. There's a great book, said Where Do the Towers Go? Definitely worth checking out. Also saying there are YouTube videos about the book. Yeah, all right, cool. Interesting stuff, Jose. Hey, thanks, Jose. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get out of here. If you guys want to support this show, some ways you can do it without chipping in any money. It's like, share, subscribe, comment, just stuff like that. It costs you absolutely nothing. Super easy for you. You leave a 5-star review if you're on iTunes or Spotify. Those little things go a long way. And I mean, I understand it. People can't always afford to give money to these sorts of things. I get it. Times are tight. Times are tight for me too. So, but if you can afford to, then patreon.com/NoWayJose2020 is the way to go. Cash is king, baby. The lowest level is $2, which get early access to the episodes. For example, I just did another False Memory Syndrome episode the other day. So I'm shooting on doing 1 to 2 behind the paywall a week now, and trying to get to where we have more behind the paywall. So give you guys more value. And then also, that's where you get the ad-free RSS feed, and then you can get the access to the video call-in feature for me and Austin's Already Dead series, which is on Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. With that, the second half of the show, you guys can pop in for the video call and shoot the bull with us. Also, the highest levels, my sponsors, I read them off every episode. My co-host on Tower Gang, at Tower Gang Toad, also at Brigade D's, at ZOVRACK, at _InfantZeal. Tim Tuttle at Jolin Klebold, Will Bell's Delicious Blueberry Rabbit Eye Wine, big fan of the show, Torn May, then at INWARD Lover. And with that, also make sure to follow me on Twitter, because as I always like to remind you guys, the show is very much formed by you guys. You guys tag me in things all the time, and I usually bring them on the show. So if you guys see something, you're like, oh shit, I'd like to see a little more coverages, or I want to share this with other people, hey, this tag me in it, and I'll likely share it to my show, to my audience. And with that, guys, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Deuces. Bye-bye.